Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome back to Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler, and joining me are our three judges, owner of One Genome Short Productions, Mr. Gabriel Rowald.
Do you like apples?
I do, actually.
How do you like them apples?
Owner of Cheshire Moon Films and Wedding Day Rewind, Mr. Tom Haggis.
I find apples to be overrated, personally.
And owner of Outpost 515 Productions and the producer of the Des Moines 48 Hour Film Project, Mr. Samuel Pace-Twomey.
Well, I really do enjoy apples.
Okay, now that we got that all covered, we all like apples.
We're going to have to do a new podcast called Fruit Smack.
Fruit Smack. Everything versus apples.
You do so much. You can make a cobbler. You can have applesauce.
Yeah, but we'd just be comparing apples and oranges.
Apples to apples. Wow, I think we planned that.
And so it begins. All right. Well, we're doing this a little late, and that's totally my fault. I forgot to email Sam about what we were watching and when we were recording. So we apologize for the episode getting out late. Well, I do. It's not their fault. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and poke the monkey and find out what we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, wordsmiths and mathematicians, welcome to the main event! Tonight, it's an epic battle of wits as we pay tribute to the late, the great Robin Williams! In the first corner, from 1997, directed by Gus Van Sant, starring Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Robin Williams. Good Will Hunting! In the second corner, from 1989, directed by Peter Weir, starring Robert Sean Leonard, Ethan Hawke, and Robin Williams. Dead Poets Society!
Let's go ahead and start with the first round, which is writing.
My writing is not so good this evening. That's a good start. Okay. All right, draft 2 coming up. Well, I was going to say that we often have compared movies that are both very good in a particular category, and I think these two movies are both very good in the writing category. So it's going to be hard to make a decision between these two films. And I don't know. I just, I guess I don't feel that either one really stands out above the other. But what I think stands out the most to me is Good Will Hunting, and the fact that it was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and they were so young at the time, and it's so well written. Now, I don't know how much help they got from other people. I don't know how it changed during the production process, but it was such a well-constructed, well-conceived character study. And I find it so impressive that two people that of that age were able to accomplish that.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're right. It's tough. How much of the polish once they picked it up happened? Mm-hmm. But you're right. I think both of these films won an Academy Award for writing. And so it is tough. But would you say that the story in Good Will Hunting moves you more than Dead Poets?
I think so. For me personally, it did. I just felt more attached to the characters in Good Will Hunting for some reason or another. I think one of the problems with Dead Poet Society to me was that there were so many characters. And with that many characters, you don't have enough time to develop them all perhaps as fully as you should. Right. So I'm assuming that people who are listening have watched these movies. So, but if you haven't, spoiler alert. When the main kid commits suicide in Dead Poet Society, I felt like it was a little bit empty. I just didn't. I felt like it was building to him having that strong of an emotion to do something so drastic, but I didn't feel like it had quite gotten there yet. We knew there was tension between him and his dad, and that his dad was, controlling and preventing him from doing the things in life that he would enjoy. But I just personally didn't feel like it built enough to reach that dramatic of a point. And so I felt like that was a little bit forced. And the other characters, their reactions to it were also therefore not as powerful as they could have been, because you didn't know much about the other characters either, and you didn't know what their relationship to him was, and so I felt like there were maybe too many characters, and that hurt them as far as character development was concerned. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought I was actually, both of these movies kind of took me by surprise when I watched them again in the past week. And the suicide scene in Dead Poets, I'm kind of with you on that, but I think part of it is having some perspective on it. I mean, when I watched it when it first came out, I was 14 years old, and it was very powerful, and because a lot of these guys were around the same age I was at the same time. But now that I'm 37 and I have some perspective on my adolescent years, the suicide seems a bit over the top, because I realize now that my adolescent years were not as big a deal as I thought they were at the time, which is the case for almost nearly every adolescent in the world. That they always think that this is, every situation is life and death, and it seemed like there were 12 different ways that Neil could have solved his problem with his father, and that was probably the worst way to go about it.
Right. No, I agree, I agree with your idea of the perspective, and maybe that's part of that character's development. It's from that character's perspective, this is a really super important moment, and the only way he knows how to solve it is through that drastic measure. But yeah, from my perspective, it was a little bit overdone.
Well, the way I see it, it's kind of interesting. Like in Good Will Hunting, Robin Williams' problem is very small. It's very focused on this one person, and yet the cast is smaller. Whereas in Dead Poets, his role is to reach a much larger kind of swath of characters, inspire them, whatnot, as this really thoughtful teacher that's inspiring and whatnot. So in some ways, you do have to be a little more broad to allow for the development of all those characters in Dead Poets. Right. And perhaps because it's also set in a different time period, even though it's slightly different time period, there's also kind of, we can kind of, look back and say, oh, those were the good old days, even compared to, the same kind of problems are still happening, just in different ways. People are still killing themselves, but I think you're right, Tom, when you say I have a different perspective when I go back and watch this. So I think the last time I watched this was around when it came out in like 89. So, early high school years for me, before I was in actually high school. So it's one of those movies I think that does hit you in different levels. I think the writing holds up for both of them, but I would tend to agree with you both about Good Will Hunting is something that in a way resonates a little bit more with me.
Right. Well, I had the same, feeling as Tom did when I first watched it. Like I said, that I was used to comedies or little action adventure pieces. I wasn't used to the dramas, and seeing Robin Williams for the first time on screen as a dramatic actor, that was my first experience with him. Was fantastic. It was just kind of opening my eyes. But we'll talk more about that when it comes to acting. But I think the writing for Goodwill Hunting was more of a finer brush because there weren't that many characters, and where Dead Poets Society had more characters, it was a broader brush to give us an idea. They weren't able to get very descriptive on all the characters like they did with Goodwill Hunting. So you kind of get to know Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Robin Williams a little bit better. You get to know those characters a lot better than I think you do in Dead Poets Society with most of the characters in Dead Poets Society.
Now,
Sure, and
oh, go ahead.
it was like Gabe said at the beginning, you have more empathy toward these characters because you get more description. You can actually feel, and they're written so harshly. Like you can see, they're pulling from friends and people and examples that they knew, and now that what we think of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon is a lot different, I think, than when they were sitting down and writing that, which is a well-deserved Academy Award, a very deep story and amazing first big outing for these two.
Right. And now one is Jason Bourne and the other one is Batman. So, sorry.
I thought the other thing too is that with Dead Poets Society, I'm going into it. They start with the Carpe Diem stuff, and I'm just, it was kind of like one after another of literary cliches.
Yeah.
And they piled on, and at the very beginning, I'll be honest, I kind of rolled my eyes and was like, yeah, but it works. I mean, the messages that he is trying to say to the kids, you want to be able to say this to every teenager. Every teenager sit down and watch Dead Poets Society because there's message in there that they need to hear. Goodwill Hunting, on the other hand, the messages that are in there, which are still kind of a carpe diem, are done, like you said, Mike, with a delicate brush. But the one scene between Robin Williams and Matt Damon where he keeps repeating, "It's not your fault, it's not your fault," is one of my favorite. Just it's such a great, well-written scene. It's definitely my favorite scene in Good Will Hunting. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes to the apple scene or a couple of the other scenes in there, but the "It's not your fault" scene is so well acted and it's such a great example of keeping the writing basic. Don't overwrite a script, and that's what I love about it. And kudos to Matt and Ben. And I've looked everywhere for people to say, who actually wrote Good Will Hunting. And there's a lot of theories, but there's nobody that's come forward and said that, that they helped them or that they ghost wrote it with them. So I've given up on that and just said, fine, Matt and Ben wrote it. Kudos to them. So
sure. Yeah. Well, and to me, the choking scene, when he first gets in there and says something about his wife and he starts choking him, that instantly tells us as an audience, there's absolutely no doubt who has the upper hand here. And underneath this soft, exterior is something deep. Like that scene really always kicks me in the ass. Like, oh my God, this guy means business.
Right.
Yeah. And then I wonder too about, there's always, at least in my experience with filmmaking, you have a script or something like a script, and then it kind of morphs a little bit as the actors get a hold of it. And I've always wondered, how much of it is the original writing and how much of it is a result of the actors taking it and making it their own. And, especially some of those scenes in Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams and Matt Damon are starting to kind of connect a little bit. And, Robin Williams is telling the story about, going to the World Series, or actually not going to the World Series game. And, and there's just this ease between the two actors. You wonder how much of that was actually written and how much of it was just them kind of going with it. They had a theme and they just went with it.
Right. Well, the whole farting wife scene was all ad lib.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, and so it blurs the line of writing, but I don't think it necessarily takes away from the writing credit.
Right.
But knowing the process a little bit, it's interesting to know how that evolved over time during that process. From what was actually written on paper and what the actors did with it themselves.
Well, especially since one of your lead actors is one of your co-writers, so it's like he's going to be able to go right back into the recall of that, and then in some ways help guide that in a way, knowing that script and making it even tighter. And I bet Robin Williams was very gracious about helping them really punch everything up as far as the way the performances came out. Because I think wasn't it Kevin Smith and Mosier had read this pretty much for Miramax and signed off, and that's why they got their co-executive producer credits or something.
Yes, I believe so. I believe that's correct. And just going with what Gabe said about how things change. I mean, films always go through 3 edits. They go through the writing, they go through the shooting, and then it goes through the final, the editing process of actually putting the film together. So it would be kind of neat to pick Ben and Matt's brain a little bit on what they had envisioned and then how it turned out. How things were different from writing to the shooting and then the shooting to the edit. And how much that changed their view of when they were writing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we look at the writer of the other piece, Peter Weir, who went on to write things like The Truman Show later, a few screenplays down the road. So, I mean, he I think that both writers kind of connect in different ways. And that's why I think we celebrate them both, is because within those types of films that they're making, the writing is pretty flawless.
All right. Well, you guys have anything else you want to say about writing? I'll take that as a no. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote. Gabe?
I think Good Will Hunting by a slight edge.
All right. Sam?
I, too, am going to go with Good Will Hunting.
All right. And Tom?
I'll also take Good Will Hunting.
All right. There you go.
How would you have voted, Mike? Just curious. You don't always vote, but you're almost like a regular panelist at this point. So how would you have voted?
Boy, I mean, Dead Poets reached me, but it wasn't because of the writing. So, I mean, it touched me in a different way when I was viewing it, and going back and watching it again, like Tom said, it's kind of skewed me a little bit to where, Good Will Hunting, I think, is just better written. I think it's a better written piece. So, I mean, I would go with Good Will Hunting myself. So I'm not disagreeing with you guys on that. Not that Dead Poet Society is poorly written. It's just that Good Will Hunting is just a little bit better on that. It gives you more depth of the characters. So, there you go. All right, I have a very long piece of trivia here. At a WGA seminar in 2003, William Goldman denied the persistent rumor that he was the actual writer of Good Will Hunting. Quote, "I would love to say that I wrote it. Here's the truth. In my obit, it will say that I wrote it. People don't want to think those 2 cute guys wrote it. What happened was they had the script. It was their script. They gave it to Rob Reiner to read, and there was a great deal of stuff in the script dealing with the FBI trying to use Matt Damon for spy work because he was so brilliant in math. Rob said, 'Get rid of it.' They then sent him in to see me for a day. I met with them in New York, and all I said to them was, 'Rob's right. Get rid of the FBI stuff. Go with the family. Go with Boston. Go with all that wonderful stuff.' And they did. I think people refuse to admit it because their careers have been so far from writing, and I think it's too bad. I'll tell you who wrote a marvelous script once. Sylvester Stallone. Rocky's a marvelous script. God, read it. It's wonderful. It's just got marvelous stuff." And then he stopped suddenly because it's easier being a movie star and making all that money than going in your pit and writing a script. but I did not write Good Will Hunting, alas. I would not have written it the "it's not your fault" scene. I'm going to assume that 148% of the people in this room have seen a therapist. I certainly have, for a long time. Hollywood always has this idea that it's the shrink with only one patient. I mean, that scene with Robin Williams gushing and Matt Damon and they're hugging, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." I thought, oh God, Fraud is so agonized over this scene, but Hollywood tends to do that with therapists. As of 2009, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have both co-written one other script together, although not with each other. Damon co-wrote Gary in 2002 with Gus Van Sant and Ben's brother Casey Affleck, and Ben Affleck directed and co-wrote with his childhood friend Aaron Stockard the script for Gone Baby Gone in 2007. In 2010, Ben Affleck directed The Town, for which he had also co-written a screenplay. So there you go. There's a long piece of trivia.
It's interesting, though.
Well,
and he's absolutely right, too.
Yeah.
About, all that wonderful stuff and, going with the families and the people. And that's what we were talking about, is that really, well done character development, intricate, personal character development.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just people have a problem accepting that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote it. I think he said it personally. Perfectly. And, hell, there's still people out there that don't think we landed on the moon. So you're always going to have deniers. They hate. The haters. Sorry.
No, I deny that there's any deniers.
Oh,
That's a double denier, sir.
That's like an infinite loop.
That is. All right. Let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
Mini Driver, how I don't want to like you. But you keep popping up in shit I like. All right, so
Is that our new URL?
Yeah, that one's available. I don't know why I'm jumping. I'm jumping to her because she stands out from all of these. First of all, she keeps showing up in stuff that I like. There's the TV show The Riches with Eddie Izzard a couple years ago, which was fantastic, and she was great in that. And she failed to ruin Grosse Point Blank, one of the best Hitman movies of all time.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
And somehow she was able to show up in a movie with Matt Damon and Robin Williams and not totally suck. And I did not, scenes with her did not get me to the point where I couldn't wait for her to get off the screen, personally. So I've got to get to a point where I just have to give her a pass and be like, right.
What is it that you don't like?
I don't know. I look at her face and I'm like, I would not like you. And if I saw her at a bar, I would walk the other way.
Is it a Susan Sarandon type of issue here?
Oh, God.
No? Okay, because I remember that was a problem.
Let's not bring in bug eyes.
That was a problem for Mike, though, right?
Hang on, I'll load the picture.
No.
Yes.
Every time I look at her, I think of Dan Aykroyd in 1941 when he has the oranges over his eyes and he's wearing the nylons. He's like, "Look, I'm a bug."
So I think I normally I would have a problem with her. I can't put my finger on it why I wouldn't like her. I don't know, because I guess initially she always comes off as very arrogant and snooty, but then she just becomes so likable and natural in her comedy. Like she's funny without trying to be funny, basically. I spent too much time on her as it is. So the other thing too, let's talk about Robin Williams because he's in both of them. I thought Robin Williams was really great in Dead Poets Society, but this is one of those things where you could really actually see genuine growth in an actor. And it was an actor that was really good in Dead Poets Society, but in Good Will Hunting, he earned his Oscar, I think. Some people probably argue that his Oscar was kind of a Lifetime Achievement Oscar that they give out sometimes, but I think he genuinely earned it for Good Will Hunting. He was fantastic in it. And I watched Good Will Hunting first, and it was funny because I watched it about a week ago, and the movie was like a half an hour before we even get to Robin Williams, and I had to pause it because he came up on screen and it like knocked the wind out of me. I wasn't I knew the scene was coming up and I was completely unready for it. But I had to like pause and take a breath because it like emotionally it got to me when I saw him on screen. Not so much with Dead Poet Society because he looks a lot different. He looks a lot more like he does now in Good Will Hunting. So, but that's my opinion on those two. I don't want to get into Matt and Ben versus the guys in Dead Poet Society because I'm sure we'll get to that. So I don't know. What do you guys think of Robin Williams in these two?
Well, I think Robin Williams is fantastic, and the most interesting thing to me is when you see Robin Williams in a comedy context or outside of acting, he's so manic and he's so hyper, and he does so many voices and he's all over the place. And if you listen to him, it's really incredible. Actually, it's hard to keep up. But you listen to it and you're like, oh my God, it sounds like total nonsense, but it's all related.
Yeah.
And he's doing all these characters perfectly, and he's doing them all at once, and it's just amazing. But the most amazing part to me, and it's a testament to, in my opinion, is a testament to really, truly fantastic acting ability, is his ability to control that. And he does, especially in Good Will Hunting, he does not seem like Robin Williams. It's not Robin Williams. He's that character, and he's got all of that stuff under control, and he's got such control of his facial expressions and his emotions, and you just felt like like the scene that was mentioned earlier about where he was choking Matt Damon and saying, if you disrespect my wife again, I will end you, and that kind of stuff. You're like, holy shit! I think he really means that.
Yeah.
That's not acting. I think he might actually kill Matt Damon, and I just really find it spectacular that he can naturally be so energetic and so manic, and bring it under control, and be so subtle and so profound in both of these movies, because I think he does it well in both. I think he's a little bit more Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society. There are moments where that comes out, where there's a kind of a funny scene where he's acting out famous like literature as different characters, like characters you would never, and I can't remember what he did, and I won't be able to do it. But there were those moments where I was like, oh, that's kind of Robin Williams. That's kind of him coming out, But Dead Poet Society, he was that character and nothing else. I think he's amazing.
But I would agree. I think he did earn his Oscar for Good Will Hunting. I think it was a very nuanced performance. I mean, it was so many layers there. And, I can name several films that I enjoy Robin Williams with that are not comedic. As an actor, as a performer, he was really able to kind of elevate a lot of the written word. And I think his characters in the two are much like we talked about in the writing. Dead Poets was a much broader stroke. So we didn't get kind of the intimacy. Again, the beauty of the writing in Good Will Hunting kind of opens it up for a performance that can really touch your heart in a lot of different ways. And I think the brilliance that Robin Williams brought to that, and like Gabe said, the ability to measure himself and to let the humor through when it was necessary, but to absolutely just totally embody that character, that very flawed character. It wasn't kind of even though he had his issues in Dead Poets and kind of show that he was more of a real person than just a real strict teacher or whatnot. Good Will Hunting, he really showed a lot of depth there. And like Tom said earlier, he's not in the entire movie. He's not. The screen times are pretty close to I have to look at the running times, but he's not in Good Will Hunting as much as he is in Dead Poets. But he is what you remember from Good Will Hunting in addition to the Matt and Ben thing. And regardless of the writing and their performances there, which I think is what the acting category is going to come down to, because Robin Williams as an actor is brilliant in both pieces. The rest of this acting category is who's not as good Minnie Driver in Tom's case, or whoever it may be, who the supporting cast is not as good, I think is going to win this for somebody tonight. I usually don't like Ben Affleck very much. He's very basic and raw here, so he's not really anything to me. I think Matt Damon turns out a performance that shows he's going to be a superstar. I think it's rushed in a few small places, very small places, but Dead Poets has such a big supporting cast,
right?
And so many worthwhile performers, especially that were performing in the late '80s and '90s. Always good work from a younger but continuing growing Ethan Hawke. Josh Charles, I really don't care about him that much, but he seems to pop up everywhere.
Hell with him.
You what?
I said to hell with him then.
I say fuck him. Fuck him. Sorry, Josh Charles. If you're a listener and you wanted to be a guest, I really apologize. You were great in Threesome and your part in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, but you didn't do it for me here. I don't know. What do you guys think about the rest of the cast? And do you think it is the rest of the cast that is? I mean, because you got to say Robin Williams is brilliant in both films at different points in his career.
Well, just real quick, when Robin Williams plays it serious, there's something genuine about him and something authentic. You're used to seeing him up there spewing funny things, a mile a minute. But when he is in a dramatic role and when he's serious, there's something authentic about him that draws me in for any of his films. And I don't know, there's just something there that I just love when he's being dramatic and when he's being serious. And like I mentioned before, seeing him in Dead Poets Society blew my brain out of the back of my head. I thought he was. I was used to the funny Robin Williams. Mork and Mindy. I was used to that, and sure, he did have some funny moments. When he was doing all the different voices and stuff, but. All in all, he was a very serious person. But Good Will Hunting was just, he had, 10 more years? Or no, not 10, 8 more years behind him. And he just perfected that character for me. I thought he was fantastic as his character. And that Oscar was well deserved, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't think it was the Academy giving him, just a lifetime. I think he earned that for what he did. As far as the rest of the cast, I kind of have to agree with Tom. Mimi Driver kind of drives me crazy for some reason. I don't know what it is, and I love Grosse Pointe Blank as well. And she bothers me in that, but not as bad as Susan Sarandon does in everything. But I wanted to talk real quick about Norman Lloyd. I was lucky enough to work with him on my second feature film, and he would just tell stories, and when normally actors are talking while we're setting up shots, but when Norman Lloyd started speaking, all work ceased on the set, and we listened to him. He would tell Hitchcock stuff. He would tell. He actually spoke for a little bit about Dead Poets Society, and it's remarkable just to hear the history. And unfortunately, I believe Norman Lloyd passed away either last year or it was the beginning of this year as well. So. I just want to say I really enjoyed working with him on my film, and then hearing about his experiences on others, and then seeing him again in Dead Poets Society, rewatching these films. It was just amazing to see that.
I don't know if any character actor has been more pigeonholed than Kurtwood Smith, the poor guy. I swear he's gonna die.
Poor
And people will
guy. Who
he'll be
cares?
cheering.
He's made so much money for himself by kind of being that Red Foreman type character in some ways. Like,
yeah.
He is. People will cheer his death and be like, "Oh, that fucking guy's finally dead." You're like,
don't be a dumbass.
yeah.
Well, let's not forget about him being in RoboCop as well.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Minnie Driver. What is it? I don't like her that much either. And I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, she was okay here, but it was like, oh god, that's who he's in. He's got the hots for. Like,
Oh yeah, it just there's something about it just bothers me. I can't put my finger on it. I mean,
Yeah, she's kind of a conundrum for me because if you look at her, she has a very unique look to her, and if you take all the individual parts, like like her jawline or her eyes and how they're set, and all the individual parts, you're like, she's not. No, if you described it, you'd be like, no, she's not really, no, not attractive. But the flip side of that is, I do like her in the movies that she's in. I think she does a really good job, and I end up strangely thinking she's kind of attractive. But it's weird. It's like a conundrum. Like she shouldn't be, but she is. And I don't know. It's kind of weird. But I think she's really a very competent actress. I think she does. I think she does a good job. And like Tom said, it's like you kind of want to not like her, but she does a good job, and then you change your mind.
Yeah.
And so I think we should give her a fair shake, even though she's got a unique look to her.
I have a Minnie Driver theory that I just came up with. I'm wondering if the reason I don't like her is that I've never met anyone that acts like that. When her characters and stuff, they're so kind of weird and quirky and, always has the right thing to say. And I don't know anybody that polished.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's it. I'm gonna go find
We'll take that as an insult.
I'm gonna find. Also, hey, Mike.
Yes.
I just checked. Norman Lloyd's not dead.
Oh, he's not.
It was an internet death hoax.
Oh, all right.
So I thought he was dead too. So I was like, what? How did he die again? And it was a death hoax. So.
Damn you, internet.
Well, it's good for some stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Like this thing I'm watching now. It's awesome.
Wait, you're watching
like the three-boobed lady.
I'm like
three-boob lady's a fake. I'll say it. Three-boob lady is a fake. She had the internet all on the roar for like a day.
It is, yeah.
Oh, really?
She's
That's
a
fake?
phony.
Oh.
Hey guys, this guy's a big phony. Sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, there's great acting in both, but man, and I have to agree with Sam. It comes down to the supporting cast on who wins this category, as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, we can talk about the Matt Damon Ben Affleck thing. A lot of people have problems with Ben Affleck. I don't know why.
because he's not a very good actor.
Yeah,
He's not. I don't think he's like top 10.
Okay,
he's not good enough to warrant the attention that he gets. How's that?
right, but he is a fantastic director.
Yeah, he's a pretty good director.
I would agree with that, and he understands. And I would even say, in some ways, like producer and writer in some ways.
Yeah,
but not as an actor.
Right.
Like,
Well,
it's not.
I can see
one
that.
example that I can think of is like Shakespeare in Love. I think I watched that, and then it was pretty good. I actually dug it for what it was worth, and then Ben Affleck's in there, and he's horrible.
Yeah,
like,
that's just
what's
because he
going on?
was hot at the time, and they put him in there. Like it
Right.
for me, yeah. But I mean, let's go back to
He's
one
not
of our.
that bad at this. He's basically himself from Boston in that film.
Right. But let's go back to one of the bouts that we did that just hurt my heart horribly, and that was the Deep Impact Armageddon show. And I love Armageddon. I can't help it. But Ben Affleck, to me, in the film was great, but his character is supposed to be annoying. You're not supposed to really about him, and I don't know. I like the guy. I do. I like him. Maybe more as a director, writer, like you guys said. But I mean, sometimes his acting does come through. I've always liked him in the Kevin Smith films, especially. We got to bring it up now when they were doing Good Will Hunting 2 in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. That just kicked my ass.
Wasn't that? Wasn't that in Scream 2?
No, that was
that was.
Yeah, because they walk on set. And Gus Van Sant is just
right.
Gus Van Sant's just sitting counting his money in his director's chair. But Matt Damon is as much as every time I hear his name, I just want to do the Team America thing. Matt Damon, but I love him as Jason Bourne. Like Jason Bourne is, I love that series of films.
And then we come back around to Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, we hit Jeremy
and the reason
Renner.
why he's not as good as that kind of character, because Matt Damon, even though he's supposed to be like this super duper like spy type, he has this humanness about him.
Yeah,
he has this likability to him.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to talk about I don't even know if I made sense on the Ben. I don't usually make sense, but I like Ben Affleck. If I see he's in a film, it's not going to turn me away, but it's not going to make me uber excited for it. If he's directing it, I get excited for it. I want to see it. Matt Damon, if he's acting in it, I want to see the film, like just because he's acting in it. So when it comes down to that, that's how I would vote. You know, Affleck should direct Damon in a film. And there you go.
The thing I want to just throw out real quick about Ben Affleck is that when the movie or the writing or the directing is really solid, and like Argo or The Town, or there's something about the movie that kind of overpowers Ben Affleck's presence in it, it works, you know. Right. And he was great in those movies when he was on screen because it wasn't Ben Affleck with all this other stuff around him, like the what was the Jack Ryan movie he was in?
Not
Clear and Present Danger. The next one. Yeah, exactly. So
I'll look it up. I own it. I own it.
That's what I'm talking about. Is when the movie isn't that great and the writing, directing aren't delivering as good as they should. Then Ben Affleck seems to kind of pull it down. It seems like he's as good as what is around him, which makes me feel good, you know, for Gone Girl coming out because. You know, David Fincher's one of the best ones out there. So
the sum of all fears
should be good. Sum of all fears. There it is. So,
well, and I think you're right, and we should vote before this becomes like a 2-hour podcast.
Agreed.
You know, he's in movies like Geely and Jersey Girl and other things, and it's not just the hubbub. I think surrounded that. I think some of it was just his poor performance. That
I like Jersey Girl.
Jersey Girl was okay because they talk about Sweeney Todd.
I've never seen Geely though. So
Geely or Nick Geely.
We haven't even mentioned Daredevil yet.
No.
Oh my God.
Directing. Let's go to directing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Before we talk about Paycheck and Smoking Aces and Hollywood, he was really good in Hollywoodland. I'll say that. All right, Tom.
God help me, I'm voting for a Mini Driver movie. Good Will Hunting.
Gabe.
Yeah, Robin Williams is stellar in both of these. He's very likable. It's hard, like you guys said, to make your pick based on his performances. So if you do kind of go to the supporting cast, you really can't go wrong with Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Minnie Driver. That they all put in great performances in Good Will Hunting, and so Good Will Hunting gets my vote.
All right, Sam.
I'm going for Dead Poets on this one. Someone's got to vote for them sometime. There was some good acting besides Robin Williams in there. So,
and I'm going to agree with Sam. I'm going to put my vote on Dead Poets just because that's the first time I remember Robin Williams in a serious role. So Dead Poets is going to take it for me, even though I loved Good Will Hunting in his performance. Let's see. I was searching around for Affleck movies, and Casey Affleck ad-libbed most of his lines. This frustrated Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and Gus Van Sant during filming. but they later admitted that Casey's improvised lines were much funnier and better than what had been originally written for him. And this one's for Tom, Minnie Driver's character, Skylar, is named after Damon's girlfriend, Skylar Satinstein, who left Damon for Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich before filming began. Damon and Driver became romantically involved during production. Director, that's not the right one. Liam Neeson had originally landed the leading role to be directed by Jeff Canoe in Dead Poets Society, but lost it to Robin Williams when director Peter Weir came on board. And I had one other one. I've got to go down here. Norman Lloyd was a bit put out when he had to audition for Mr. Nolan. He made the decision while playing a tennis match because he said it heightened his receptivity. When he won the match, he agreed to audition. There you go. Let's move on to directing. Sam?
Gus Van Sant is...
Sorry.
What?
It was just like I pushed your button. Sorry,
yes,
go ahead.
I think it's easy to say, like, to me, from a young age, at least when I started really appreciating films in high school, Gus Van Sant's work really kind of spoke to me. And some of that may be because I was, just coming to terms with my sexuality and whatnot. But when I saw his film, My Own Private Idaho, it really spoke to me. It had River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves, and at the time, like, River Phoenix was, something of a fascination. I had known him from earlier times, but to see him in this kind of alternative role. Long story short, that led me to some of his earlier work, like Drugstore Cowboy, and so I kind of followed Gus Van Sant for a long time. So to see this film, which was kind of his really kind of mainstream entry. I mean, he'd been respected as more of an independent filmmaker, but never really done something with this kind of a budget, and it really speaks to me. I think I love his touches, and in a way how he was able to work with these newer talents with Ben and Matt to kind of create a perfect storm of production, because he had been there at the beginning. Trying to be not necessarily experimental, but do different types of films. This was a new thing for him. This was a new thing for them, and I think it clicked really, really nicely. The camera movements that we start seeing almost right away in Good Will Hunting. In some ways, I think the playing with the camera occurred quite a bit more in Good Will Hunting. I think they've used the camera more effectively, I think would be a better term, in Good Will Hunting. Whereas, Dead Poets Society did have some large sweeping shots and some large kind of scenery type shots. But to me, the camera didn't help to convey the emotion. And not just all the cinematographer, but how the director was setting up the shots, and also working with the actors. Even though Gus Van Sant was doing a lot less kind of, painting in these broad colors, he was able to kind of get to the nuances of, the body language between the people, how close they were, the pacing of a lot of those scenes. To me, I'd say let's vote now. I know we're not going to, but I would say Gus Van Sant in Good Will Hunting.
And I completely disagree with you. I think Gus Van Sant, I find his directing to be kind of over heavy-handed, and it kind of beats you over the head. And I don't find that his direction helps the story as much as Peter Weir's does. And I think Dead Poet Society is an absolutely beautiful film, and there was a lot more creativity in Dead Poet Society in terms of framing and composition that Peter Weir used. I love Peter Weir. I have most of his movies on my shelf, and Truman Show and Mosquito Coast are two of my all-time favorites. I love both of those movies and what they have to say, and I just don't think that Gus Van Sant's movies speak to me in the same way that that Peter Weir's does, and I've been a Peter Weir fan for 20 years, and his stuff is absolutely fantastic. And it's funny because the messages that Peter Weir was saying with this and with Truman Show, and to a lesser extent Mosquito Coast, are the messages that resonated with me when I was an adolescent. So I think it's interesting that Gus for Sam was speaking to him, whereas Peter for me was speaking to what I needed to hear when I was that age. So it's up to you, Gabe. Don't fuck it up.
Oh, wow. Jeez. No pressure. Yeah, I think again these movies are both pretty well matched, and we're voting for one or the other, but I think we would all agree that they're pretty close. And I agree that it's I feel anyway that it's pretty close for the directing as well. You have to say that taking on. I mean, one thing we haven't really talked about too much is that Dead Poets Society was kind of a period piece. And, so taking on any kind of a period piece is, in my opinion, a bit of a challenge. You have to kind of, you have to think about all of that stuff as well as the performances and that kind of thing. Whereas with, Good Will Hunting, it was pretty much modern day at the time that it was made. So you don't have to worry about that very much, or not as much. But they did do a great job in Good Will Hunting with kind of the sets and the scenery and that kind of thing, and portraying, how each of these people lived, each of the main characters, how Matt Damon's character and his, Will and his friends lived, and it was almost kind of like, definitely lower class, kind of almost trashy kind of neighborhoods. And then, the professor at MIT and what it was like, and, how he lived. And they did a really good job with that in the scenery, telling that story without having to tell that story explicitly. So I think both of these are really competently directed. When I think of Dead Poets Society, I don't think of any of the cinematography that jumps out at me. Some of the snow scenes, after the kid dies and his roommate is running out in the snow and that isolation, that I remember. But the cinematography, I don't know why it just doesn't stick with me. But I feel like the cinematography in Good Will Hunting did a little bit more. And I liked how they created intimacy with the camera, this closeness with, and that how the characters were feeling with each other was reflected in the shots. And when they were feeling closer to each other, the shots were a little more intimate, and when they weren't, they were a little bit further away. I don't know. It's going to be a tough choice, but I think okay. What? Go ahead.
Nope.
Nope.
I'm going to have to disappoint Tom and fuck this all up and say that I'm kind of leaning toward Good Will Hunting.
You had one job, Gabe. I will say there are a couple of things that I liked about Good Will Hunting. First of all, there with the Robin Williams Matt Damon scenes, I really liked the camera movements when he shifted the 180 and went behind Robin Williams' head as the discussion changed. It was a touch on the gimmicky side, but I thought it really worked. So that being said, I thought that was really great. Dead Poet Society, the scene where Neil kills himself and his dad comes in, and Kurtwood Smith comes in and does the slow motion. No, I thought that sucked.
I thought that was a little almost cliche or campy.
Yeah,
like predictable. And maybe only because we've seen so many other movies like that. Now there's some beautiful cinematography. Now that you mention that, there leading up to that, there's some really nice cinematography right there, where he's kind of preparing himself for that moment. Where he's got that kind of crown, almost. It wasn't a crown of thorns in the play, but it's like a crown of thorns in real life for him. And then the snow coming down, and him going down the stairs, and the shadow. Of the the light coming up the stairwell, and there's some really beautiful shots leading up to that kind of that shot, that scene that you were talking about.
See, and I think Dead Poets Society from beginning to end is just a beautiful film. The soccer scene and even the party scene with Knox and Chris, and then the scene with them outside in the snow where he convinces her to go to the play. I just I don't know. It's got a very romantic view of the academy, and I don't know. If you fucked it up,
scraping?
No, it's me. Sorry, I'm scratching. I have a filter in my hand. I got 2 filters, and I'm screwing them back and forth. So
okay.
I'll stop doing that. Sorry, I didn't realize I'm so close to the microphone. My bad. So anyway, now I screwed it up. Okay.
Well, this one's tough. I have to agree with Gabe. I really love some of the shots, or a majority of the shots in Good Will Hunting. As someone that's always looking for that, different ideas, different techniques, I loved some of them in Good Will Hunting. But, man, having a bland school and kind of a bland outdoors, for Dead Poets Society, I think they really pulled it off with the shots. But this one's going to be tough for me. This one's going to be really tough. I think
Good Will Hunting.
It's the day. Good Will Hunting.
I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to say more about directing?
No.
No? All right. Let's put it to a vote. Gabe, Sam, whatever. Sorry. I'm just saying names. Steve.
What time?
Sam.
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. Gabe's Good Will Hunting.
Yes.
Tom.
Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, that's what I thought there.
Yeah.
Let me get a pen that works. That one doesn't work.
I'll just remember. I'll keep track. I got it.
You got it?
Yep, I wrote it down. It's a close one.
It is. I'm sorry, Tom. I gotta go with Good Will Hunting. I know you're disappointed in me. I'm sorry.
Serious? There's nothing special about that drawing.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. Director Peter Weir chose to shoot the film in chronological order to better capture the development of the relationships between the boys and their growing respect for Mr. Keating.
That's a beautiful choice. I'm going to definitely vote for Dead Post Society. Now everybody's welcome to join me if you'd like.
Let's see. And it was filmed at St. Andrews, a private boarding school in Delaware. Oh, that would have been awful, being stuck in Delaware.
Delaware.
I always think back to
Wayne's World.
Wayne's World. Look, we're in Delaware.
We're in Delaware.
Let's see here. I don't really have too much for Gus. Director Gus Van Sant at one point asked Damon and Affleck to rewrite the script so that Chucky is killed in a construction accident. Damon and Affleck protested, but reluctantly wrote the scene in. After Van Sant read it, he agreed that it was a terrible idea. There you go. Let's move on to our final round, which is overall.
Okay, wow. Yeah, both of these films are really great films. And one thing I wanted to talk about that we don't often talk about is the music. And I found that I enjoyed the music, the score in not Dead Post Society, Good Will Hunting as well. But I was really surprised to find that it was Danny Elfman.
Yep.
Because it didn't have that kind of stereotypical Danny Elfman style to it. Yeah, like you might think of in like Beetlejuice or something. And I thought it was actually very. Before I knew who it was, I thought it was. I'm trying to think of his name. Who's the guy who did the music for? Shoot, now I can't even remember the name of the movie. I'm drawing a total blank. His brother does music too. That's
Randy. I can't even say it. Randy
Newman, Thomas Newman.
Tom.
Randy.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Hey, don't try to kill yourself today.
Yeah, exactly.
The Simpsons always do great
from my description, but yeah, no, I thought it was Thomas Newman because it had that kind of feel of what's American Beauty. I was thinking the Roses movie, American Beauty. It kind of had that feel of American
Gabe?
Beauty when I heard it.
You smell burning
I thought
toast.
it was Thomas Newman, but very surprised to find that it was Danny Elfman. Yeah, so the music is something that we don't talk about too often unless it really stands out for one reason or another. And I just felt like that was just another element that really came together well for Good Will Hunting, personally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't really care for the music in Dead Poets Society. I mean, they did a really good job of using the pop music of the time and then classical music when it was appropriate. But when Maurice Jarre was like, "Hey, let's throw in some synthesizers and have them run through the forest," and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like Lady Hawk bad."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Wow,
so,
Lady Hawk reference. That's awesome.
I love that movie so much. But I thought. Overall, I think, it's really, really tough for me. I might have to go with Good Will Hunting just because there's some Red Sox references in that movie, and it is. I'm just telling you, it is so close between the two. That might be what sways me. So,
Wow.
kudos to Dead Poets Society. But Red Sox will win me over, I think. And there it is.
Sam, you have anything to say overall?
Yeah, I think overall, I love Good Will Hunting. I love Gus Van Sant. Matt Damon's great, but I think Minnie Driver and maybe a little bit of Casey Affleck. I think he's not as good as he is in some of his other roles later, even though his part is smaller. I'm gonna go with Dead Poets, and I'll tell you what tips the balance to Dead Poets for me is Ethan Hawke.
Oh, really?
Really?
Ethan Hawke, huh? All right. Well, boy, for me, it's just going to come down to my first experiences with the films, and unfortunately, when I first started watching Good Will Hunting, I was only able to watch like the first, 45 minutes. And then I ended up happening to do something else, and I never got back to it until I watched it for this, and was able to watch the full thing. And I'd seen bits and pieces of it before that, but I'd never actually sat down and watched the entire film completely. So. It's just going to go for me, my experiences the first time watching it, and I don't know, Dead Poets just sticks out for me. Although I do agree, the music, the synthesizer music, because I'm kind of a music score nerd. That was just awful. It was horribly placed in the film. Like it did not belong.
Interestingly, in that respect, Maurice. I don't know how you say his name properly. Maurice Jarre.
Yeah, that sounds close enough.
His bio on IMDb says he met and studied under Joseph Martineau. I don't know how you say that either. Inventor of the Martineau Waves, an electronic keyboard that prefigured the modern synthesizer. So that may explain why that was part of the score.
That could be.
Because he was heavily influenced that from his early education, it sounds like.
All right. Do you guys want to add anything else?
Yes, I want to say that Good Will Hunting is probably the worst fucking title for a good movie I've ever seen in my life. They could have named this. It's a horrible title for this movie. And if I ever see Harvey Weinstein, that's what I'm going to ask him. I'm like, how the hell did you let that movie out with that title? That's a horrible title.
What's a better title? Let's do 1 minute of alternative titles. Go.
But that's not really.
Yeah, what's your better idea, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not the boss of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
the Beantown Brain. There you go.
Beantown Brain. It sounds
like a kid's cartoon or something.
No, it sounds like a Disney movie from the 50s.
Shit, or just call it Goodwill. That would have been a good 2 words. Goodwill would have been better than Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But then you wouldn't have he's Goodwill Hunting. You know, that cheesiness.
Yeah,
Sorry. He's kind of got you, Tom.
Okay, well.
Do you think that was the original title, the working title when they were writing it?
Probably. I don't know.
What, the bean?
Good morning hunting.
Good morning hunting.
Or
math me not. Sorry.
Or you know what? Or change his name so it'd be like Goodwill Peterson.
Fronting. Like Goodwill Fronting.
Yeah. There you go.
About a Boston guy, just another Boston guy.
I would see that.
Me too, actually.
I'm just another. I'm seeing if there is a porn parody.
They should call it, or they could call it, Mini Driver's not in it that much.
Oh my God! Why did I look this up?
Are you looking at porn?
Yeah, because the spoof for it is Goodwill Humping.
Of course.
I gotta say these now. All right, I gotta say these. There's one called Throbbing Hood, Prince of Beeves, A Clockwork Orgy, A Rear and Pleasant Danger, Edward Penis Hands. Honey,
I have that one.
Honey, I Blew Everybody. Sperms of Endearment, Star Trek or Sex Trek: The Next Penetration. Here's my favorite: Big Trouble in Little Vagina. Hannah Does Her Sisters, Porn on the 4th of July, The Da Vinci Load.
I've actually seen.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, you have to give him credit.
The 69th Sense.
Oh my God.
Honey, I Blew Everybody. I wonder if Rick Moranis makes a cameo in that. So yeah, I'm sorry. I had the minute you said an alternate title, I went to porn parody. So Goodwill Humping might have captured your eye a little bit better, Tom. All right, let's go to a vote. Right. Gabe.
Goodwill Hunting.
Tom.
Edward Penis Hands.
That's not on my list, Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry. Goodwill Hunting.
All right. And Sam.
Dead Poets Jack Off Society. That's all I could think of. I couldn't think of a better one, so sorry.
Head Poets Society.
And I'm going with Dead Poets Society just because of the first time I saw it.
Head Poets Society is good.
Yeah.
It's like the blowjobs are like lyrical. There's a certain rhyme and rhythm to them. It's
Poets Society.
Yeah, this has gone way downhill.
I'm sorry. I'm the one that led us off the tracks. So let's go on. I'm going to count these. I believe we have some feedback. And I think Tom and Sam both have some feedback from people. So whoever wants to go first can.
Go ahead, Gabe. Sam, who had the other one?
Sam.
I heard my name. I didn't care about anybody else. Go ahead.
Well, we always encourage you to check us out on Facebook. Find Cinesmack. That's a way you can leave your feedback and kind of figure out what we're going to be talking about after a while. Looks like we've had some comments here in the last couple, or over the summer. Let's put it that way. Patrick Boberg writes, with the release of sequel Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I think you guys should smack off, which I haven't heard that term.
No.
That's our porno title.
It's for smack off and send us back. But featuring Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can.
Oh.
2 movies. very, very good. We'll add them to the list, Patrick. Keep
Yes.
listening and giving us your ideas.
I'm doing that right now.
And by the way, you guys know that Patrick is the head of Tiny Explosions, who does 48-hour film movies too, and he had one this year. I'm trying to remember the full title. 2 Men in a Backpack.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And he also wrote a very nice article about the 48-hour film project for City View, which was their cover.
That's right. That's correct.
So yeah, great supporter of film, and I'm glad to know he's listening to our cast because
thanks for listening, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have to have him. We'll have to have him as a guest when we do Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, because I love both those films.
Yeah.
And I think he would like to be a guest.
All right. Well, I'll have to reach out to him. Go ahead, Tom.
And we had another letter from Carl at UV Films. And Carl says, so I just started listening to your podcast, and here are my thoughts on what you guys said about Guardians of the Galaxy versus the Avengers. Writing, I thought the jokes in the Avengers were awesome. They were small, but very hilarious. They fit the characters of the Avengers. The part with Tony catching the guy playing a video game was so funny. You had a bigger cast, and everyone had a great portion in it. You knew it all about them. Guardians of the Galaxy writing was okay, just felt like another cookie-cutter story plot that we've seen the past couple of years. Avengers is a similar style. The jokes in Guardians of the Galaxy were barely funny. I laughed only a couple of times. The end where Chris Pratt was dancing in front of the villain. What the fuck? That's not funny at all. Acting, you guys nailed the Avengers. They had a huge cast, and they had the possibility of too much ego, but they worked together very well and made each better. Guardians of the Galaxy was a way younger crowd, younger directors, so it kind of worked. I'm just not a Chris Pratt fan at all. I think I'm done with this letter.
Well, actually, I just wanted to say I wasn't with you guys on that podcast, and I know Carl. I just met him. I was actually on his podcast to promote 48, and he was a videographer on the red carpet for us. But he's totally wrong about Guardians of the Galaxy. I couldn't even get through Avengers. I know you guys are all hard on for fucking Avengers, but if I was to take that tie, I totally would have went Guardians of the Galaxy.
Is my webcam on? How did you know I had a hard on for the Avengers?
I didn't guess.
It is on. It isn't. Sorry.
It's in? Wait, what?
What? My webcam was on. That's how Sam knew that I had a hard on for the Avengers.
All right. I got you. I'm going back to math.
All right, back to Carl. Guardians of the Galaxy was a way younger crowd. I said that Parks and Rec and the Lego Movie I'm not fans of, so when I saw that he was the lead, I was, ugh! I just don't find him funny. The two best characters were Dave Bautista and the evil sister from Doctor Who. What I did like about Guardians was the worlds that were created. Nowhere was amazing looking. Agreed. And the city with the council was pretty neat. But I really don't care about the franchise. I don't really care about the franchise with what's coming up with it. The Avengers knocked it out of the park. I enjoyed watching it every time. I know it's a little long, but it works. If they cut it down by 20 minutes, you would lose a lot of the character development. Keep up the great work. Lots of love, Carl. Thanks, Carl, for writing.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you, Carl.
it. So we all love hearing varying opinions. So
Yes.
I think you need to give Chris Pratt a second chance because he's awesome.
Yes, and we should have Carl on as well. He's a filmmaker out of Cedar Rapids.
All right.
Yes.
And, as always, it's always good to network and bring new people into this wonderful world of, independent cinema. And in our case, talking about smacking it up.
Yep. Send us a letter. We'll read it on the podcast, and you too may become slightly more famous.
Yeah.
You can smack off with us.
Oh, see, now that's going to get us a lot of listeners. We need to run with that as our smack off with Tom. His picture, like just his picture. Guys, what are you doing? We'll put it on Twitter so we can see it.
All right.
We're in trouble.
That is
Back on me
the
in
quote of
October,
the month.
all October.
All right.
Wow.
Well, real quick, I'll play Who Won. Let me poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Good Will Hunting!
That was entertaining, to say the least. Just real quick, the reason we did this podcast was because of the loss of Robin Williams. And he's going to be greatly missed by his fans, movie lovers, and especially by his loved ones. And I don't know, do you guys have anything you would like to say, any of your favorite moments of Robin Williams?
I'm saving mine for my suggestion.
Okay. All right.
All I would say is he, like you said, will be deeply missed. He gave us all a great body of work to reflect upon and hopefully continue to enjoy for years to come. Most importantly, if anyone out there is having problems with depression or other things, I'd hope that they would please seek out help because it is out there. And hopefully his death will continue to open doors to conversations so that we may be able to save even one person from taking their own life.
Well said, Sam.
Yeah, I agree with Sam.
Well said, Gabe.
As comedic. What's that?
I said, well said, Gabe.
Thank you. As manic and energetic and funny as he was, I think the performances that we talked about tonight revealed, in hindsight, that there was something deeper and more human and more maybe even a little bit sad in Robin Williams, and he really connected with that for these roles, and it really showed. And unfortunately, I think people didn't realize just how deeply that sadness ran in him, yeah. And it's tragic that we had to lose him in such a way. I guess our thoughts go out to his family and friends, and we're sad to have lost him.
And I didn't mention this during the acting part, but Kevin Smith was able to go on set for Good Will Hunting and watch Robin act, in a few of the scenes. And he reflected on it on his podcast, Hollywood Babylon. And it's just, if you can find it, listen to it, because he said some super nice things about Robin Williams and what it was like to watch him in that role from behind the scenes, and how much it just blew him away that he was acting in it. And quite honestly, from the sounds of it, the film wasn't going to get made but Robin Williams kind of stepped up to the plate to help get that film made, because he believed in it so much. And, like we said, his performance was outstanding in it. And I think it was just a labor of love for him. He loved doing it. So, yeah. Let's move on to what you guys want to tell everyone else to watch. I don't even know words right now. We'll start with Sam. Recommendations. There we go. Sam.
Sure. My recommendation is really short this week. And it's not Robin Williams related, although I am going to be devouring, like I said, a lot of his films in the next several months. Look forward to watching them. My suggestion is in theaters currently. It's Kevin Smith's new film Tusk. It's for me, it's a very interesting exercise in filmmaking, especially independent filmmaking. The way that it was, the way the ideas that was born out of a podcast, shot very quickly on a very low budget, and was a real stretch, I think, directorially for him. It's not perfect. There are some things that could be sped up or changed a little bit. But to me, it was a very fun experience, and I think if you have any respect or any kind of liking of any Kevin Smith product, I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's a great evolution for him, and it's a fun watch. So go see Tusk. It's in theaters now.
All right, Tom.
I'm going to recommend Robin Williams' second movie that he did from 1982, The World According to Garp.
Oh.
This is a movie based on a book, and it was the first quote-unquote grown-up book I ever read. When I was about 13 years old, I think I stole my mom's copy and read it, and absolutely love the book. It's one of my all-time favorite books. And the movie is really good. And I don't know how to do this without being ridiculed by everybody else on the panel, but you should probably read the book first and then see the movie. You have a deep fuckers. You'd have a better.
Welcome to
You'd have a
Book
better
Smack.
appreciation of the. You have a better appreciation of the movie, I think, with the story and a lot of the stuff that doesn't quite fit into the movie. So, my
So is
recommendation.
your pick a book again? Sounds like you're saying the book again. Okay.
No, I'm
okay.
I'm recommending the movie, and if you haven't read the
Which
book,
is great. Okay.
you should read a book, you fucking people. God, it's a book. God, it's like
John Lithgow is amazing in that, though. I really love John Lithgow in that.
I'm not asking people to like mutilate themselves or anything. Just turn a couple freaking pages or something. Jeez.
I need to. You're right, Tom. It's like that's a moment of clarity for me. Thank you.
Thanks. You're mocking me. It's fine. Fine. Go ahead.
I am not actually. I wish I need to read more. Actually,
It's directed by the great
truth be told.
George Roy Hill, who directed Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, one of the best westerns of all time. So check it out. World According to Garp.
That is a fantastic choice.
No reading needed.
Gabe.
Well, I'm going to recommend another movie where a kind of crazy, over-the-top, manic comedian takes on a more serious role. I'm going to recommend Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey. And he's another one of those guys who can surprisingly pull off a pretty serious role. He's one of those people that you feel like, just looking at him and his facial expressions just makes you laugh, and he's just so over the top all the time. It's hard to believe that he could pull off anything even halfway serious. And I think he does a great job in Man on the Moon, especially near the end when things get pretty dire for the main character. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
All right. Well, I guess that goes to me. There's just before we started to record, I was going through all of the Robin Williams films, and it's hard for me to pick a favorite. I mean, there are some that I didn't care for, but there are some that are just fantastic. But I want to go with one that I grew up with, and I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me out. Have I suggested Popeye?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the 1980 film Popeye. I grew up with it on HBO. It's 114 minutes. Sometimes it feels like 3 hours. But it's directed by Robert Altman, who is known to just ad-lib most of the films. There's not really generally a full script. I loved this movie growing up. I have the DVD now. I've watched it maybe a year ago, and everything doesn't hold up, but it's still enjoyable. So if you want, go out, watch Popeye. It has Robin Williams as Popeye, Shelley Duvall as Olive Oyl. Let's see, trying to pick some other big
Shelley
names.
Duvall's eyes is Olive Oil's eyes.
Yes. And Ray Walston is Poop Deck Pappy. But it's so much fun. Like going back and watching it, and the musical numbers and the set. I love it. So if you get a chance, if you're like, I'll give it a shot, try Popeye. It's not one of his better rated films, but I think you'll enjoy it. There's some great little parts in it. So yeah, let's move on to where people can stalk you at. Let's start with Tom.
People can find me at all of their local Barnes & Noble stores. Because unless you didn't know, reading is fundamental. And I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The FUN is capitalized. Reading is fundamental. I'm not saying that right. How's that go? All right. Well, you can just find me on Facebook or Vimeo. WeddingDayRewind.com. Brand new website. It just got finished 2 days ago. It's beautiful now, and lots of cool wedding films on there. Or CheshireMoonFilms.com.
Mine's on there.
Yours is on. Yeah. We just paid a lot of money for somebody to clean up our website and make it look pretty. So check it out.
Awesome, Gabe.
Thank you.
You can find me on Facebook or at onegenomeshort.com.
All right, Sam.
You can't find me. I'm hiding. Hibernation for till the end of the year. No, I'm just kidding. Look for me on Facebook. As always, you can get information about the 48-Hour Film Project at 48hourfilm.com/Des Moines. And we'll be doing it all again next year. So.
All right. Well, you can find me on Facebook. You can look up southsiderstudios.com. And we would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. You can contact us, just like Carl did, at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, just like Patrick does, or just search Cinesmack. For October, we will have Tosh back on the show from his annual release from Smith's Grove, as Cabin in the Woods goes nose to nose with Evil Dead from 2013. Hashtag bring back the albino. So for Gabe, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
You're not perfect, sport. And let me save you the suspense. This girl you met, she isn't perfect either. But the question is whether or not you're perfect for each other. That's the whole deal. That's what intimacy is all about. Now, you can know everything in the world, sport, but the only way you're finding out that one is by giving it a shot. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion.
Hello. What? Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, how do you like them apples, bitch?
I assume we were all waiting for that.
We were.
I know, and now I feel like I got to say something at the end of everything.
Hey, man, you made your bed. You gotta sleep in it.
That's
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.